Yet again, the Brooklyn Nets are on the clock with another pick. Seems like half these videos we've done tonight involve the Nets. Who knows who's going to play, who's going to stay overseas? One guy who is on the books and we can assume he will play is Danny Wolf out of Michigan, going to Brooklyn with the 28th pick. Point forward type who burst on the scene and shattered any expectations even the most optimistic fan could have had going into the year. Essentially ran the point for Michigan as a true 7-footer. Love watching him play. The highlights, the flashes are incredible. The handles for a guy to move like he does at his size, the passes he makes, truly tantalizing skill set. Of course, with that, there's the turnovers. There's some inefficiency marked baked in. You have stretches where he disappeared and you forget he was on the court. Dion, are you a Danny Wolf believer in terms of his NBA upside?
So I think I was the original Danny Wolf is going to go first round guy. I said it last September while Cart was on paternity leave for Leonsburg. Um, I think I think he has the prototypical NBA game. He's a 7-footer. He can shoot. He can pass. He can defend at the basket at least. Like if you get him on an island, he can't defend, but he can defend the rim. Um, I don't know. What do you think his upside is though? Like where do you think what do you think Danny Wolf best case scenario is?
Uh, is there a world where it's like, what if he just does what he did at Michigan in the NBA and averages 13 points, 9 boards, and 5 assists?
Probably
You're
not.
probably not looking at all-star teams, but you're looking at someone who is maybe more in the Josh Giddey mold, where I'm saying in terms of a guy he's clearly not a number one, but he does a lot of things well. And even if you're just a play-in team like the Bulls are right now, you're wanting to add him, hoping he can elevate your ceiling a little bit. Or I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities Giddey could ever make an all-star team when you look at how he stuffs the stat sheet and thought he improved as a scorer a ton this year. But yeah, to me, the best case scenario for Danny Wolf is just the things that he's best at in terms of rebounding, playmaking, facilitating, handling, like that just translating to the NBA smoothly, and he puts up similar numbers. I I don't know if there's a world where he ever becomes an all-star caliber guy, but I think a fun, entertaining player with a unique skill set who maybe has a 5 year stretch where he just has a cult following for a really good team as like the number two option or something.
You think he could be the number two option on an NBA roster?
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is sleepers media where you come to expect the unexpected.
That'd be insane. I was gonna say his best case scenario is Forrest Theodore.
That was the first name that came to my mind as well, but I wanted to go a little more fun than that, a little more fun upside here. Um, which like I think if you're Danny Wolf or if you're a Michigan fan and you're telling me you could have a guy who's representing your school be a fourth or fifth option on an NBA championship team that played in multiple finals and was a pivotal piece, like during the actual finals, you take that 10 times out of 10. I think that would be a great outcome for him. There's part of me that just can't help but wonder because his skill set is unique, because there aren't many guys, there just aren't many archetypes to go off of for a guy at his size who was the de facto point guard. This isn't like a Jokic or Shingun type where you're using them at the top of the key or in the pinch post to make a bunch of reads. This is the dude who you're letting create off the bounce. And I understand any sort of skepticism that translates to the NBA. I totally get it because of the athletic profile, because of just the size. Like guys that big aren't supposed to handle like that against the best athletes in the world, and he probably won't. But there's a small part of me that questions if it does translate, does he become someone who's capable of being a number two option on a playoff team? You know, we talked about this earlier tonight when breaking down Noah Esingwe, and we talked about Pascal Siakam's career arc. Siakam was like the 28th overall pick, played at New Mexico. We would have never expected him to be the number two option on an NBA championship team, you know? So that's just where I wouldn't rule it out even while trying to be realistic.
So, okay, so here's my issue with Danny Wolf. And I think everything Riley said makes sense, but I just want to give a little bit of my perspective on why I don't think it's going to work. G says it very well. For Danny Wolf to work, the ball needs to be in his hands. who's going to build an offense around Danny Wolf? It's not Brooklyn. They just drafted 7 dudes tonight. I think I think the only one you're more likely to build an offense around Danny Wolf before it's him is Ben Seraph. I think everybody else is, is way more likely to have the ball in their hands before Danny Wolf gets it. And my dog Ben's taking a lot of hits for me tonight. I'm sorry, Ben. But
Hey, Danny, well, they're both Israeli. I wonder if they might have played together on like the in the FIBA World Cup teams.
maybe, yeah.
There could already be some good chemistry here between Dan. Maybe Danny brings Ben over and said, "Y'all thought you were gonna stash him, but my guy Ben is coming with me."
Or maybe Ben brings him over in a few years too. No, but I think the problem is like you to play to somebody's strengths, or like he's one of those guys like that. The offense needs to be built around him for his strengths to show, and that's not going to happen at the NBA level, right? Like Royce White, you know, off the court stuff aside, I think is a great comparison for Danny Wolf, where it's just like I thought Royce White was a great player. I realized very quickly Houston and nobody else is going to build their team around Royce White, and that's what he needs. Danny Wolf has a very similar game, and no one's going to stare at Cam Thomas, Igor Denman, at the moment Cam Johnson, at the moment Nick Claxton, at the moment all these guys and be like, you know what, we got Danny Wolf. And I just mean that respectfully. I think Danny Wolf is going to be able to carve out a long, long, long NBA career. I was talking about Ben being able to bring him over. But I think when we're talking about right away, there's going to be a lot of growing pains because he doesn't have a role in it, and no one knows exactly what that is, including himself, because it's going to be completely different than what he did in college.
hmm hmm Yeah, I think that is probably the biggest question mark. Like, what leash is he given? What role is he entrusted to? Just because it's really tough to envision a guy going with the 27th pick in the draft is just you're gonna say to him, "All right, Danny, take the reins." Even when you come in off the bench, is it gonna be Danny Wolf time? I mean, maybe. We've been talking about this with all these Nets picks. They're not trying to compete anytime soon. They're probably gonna like trade a lot of their current contributors, whether it's Claxton or Russell. They could move any of these guys. Yeah, I gonna be fascinating to see how this plays out, what sort of freedom he's given, and if the Nets organization understands that, this dude is a unique skill set. There aren't many players that you compare him to, and we're gonna empower him from the jump. Maybe he shows something during summer league that earns the coaching staff's trust. I don't know. It'll be he could be a guy who it doesn't really all click till 3, 4 years from now, if ever. Regardless, I like the swing this late in the draft. I would have taken Danny Wolf probably like late teens, early 20s. So I think it's a smart pick. And I think you are bringing in a lot of what the Nets have done tonight have been high upside guys. They've swung for the fences a couple of times. They've done the opposite of the Kings, who are just bringing in older, like win now players when they don't have many of those on their roster. So yeah, it's smart drafting in my opinion. Just gonna be very, very interesting to track like who actually plays from this group. This is like half your team, and you don't know who's actually playing out of all of this contingent of draft picks you have.
It's one of those things you just need one to hit. And it's not just this year, but it's one in the next couple of years to hit. That's the beauty of the NBA. You're just looking for one guy. And the Nets are giving them plenty of chances to find that one person. And you do have to applaud them for that. I don't know how we're going to view this draft class a few years down the line. There's a couple infamous Rockets classes I can think of where they drafted about 5 dudes. I'd love to know how many dudes are still on the team that they took that year. But it did work. I believe Sengun was a part of that draft
Mhm.
actually, and same with Tari. So you just need one or two of the 5 to work, and look at where the Rockets are.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good pick, Brooklyn. Hopefully, a couple of these guys pan out. Hopefully, one of them is Drake Powell too. That'd be fun. Me and Greg's unlikely alliance over Danny Wolf and Drake Powell in Brooklyn. I think the channel would love to see it.